Hello, welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia. This week I'll be reviewing the third episode of Vigilantes titled Nice Guy Reborn. You know the rules and so do I. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below and you will be relating next week's show. Once you're there, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. Now onto the review. And just one quick thing before we get into the review itself. I do have the window open. I do have a fan going because we are starting to get into summer now, so if you hear any weird noises, it's because of that. But anyway, into the review, and as we always do at the start of one of our reviews, it's time to talk about the positives. And as far as this episode goes, it was a fun, light, bright little adventure that was rollicking fun from start to finish, with some decent actions and a great sprinkling of gags all along the way. Now, this is the kind of thing that I was hoping for when it came to my coming to this series. I hope that we'd have kind of these little adventures and these side missions almost all the way through, or at least with them being evenly distributed along the wider story. Whilst there is a greater plot afoot, this is still a fairly light story and isn't all that indisposable either. You know, this isn't a filler episode, or at least not in the kind of typical ways that we assume it would be filler. But with that said, we're only about 3 episodes into this, so you know, we were starting to serve out the filler here and now. It would be a bit of a warning sign of things to come. This episode was very much showing the next logical step in the journey of our hero, Mr. Nice Guy, or as he's now known, the Crawler. I will admit, this is probably not the name that I would have picked for him. You know, it kind of has a few connotations here and there, mostly due to the fact that Crawler is a slang term, or used to be a slang term for someone that's a little bit of a suck-up, a little bit of a, you know, someone that's trying a little bit too hard, but you know, if that's the name they want to go with, sure, fine. Somewhat lost in translation, but whatever. And in this episode, we get a little bit more of an understanding of the bread and butter aspects of being hero/vigilante on this level. Even if these guys were heroes or at the very bottom rung of it, their access and the resources that they have at the disposal are rather limited. And especially so because of the fact that they are vigilantes. So they have to be a lot more intuitive in trying to come up with solutions to the various different problems that they face. This, again, as I mentioned in previous episodes of these reviews, is that it kind of reminds me of Kick-Ass or the movie Defendor, for anyone that remembers that movie, where our characters had to try and compensate for a lack of superpowers by using more conventional equipment in more intuitive and innovative ways. Sure, Crawler using the motorcycle protection gear to help him in his hero work seems like an obvious thing in hindsight, but all the same, it's neat to see. I was working on a hero series about a decade ago for radio, which was in a similar kind of thing of this, and trying to think of how would you use more commonly accessible things and items to compensate for lack of superpowers. And I am happy to see a little bit more of that kind of thing here and now. It does give us an insight into a side, like I said previously, a side of the hero world that we really don't see. And it's great to see that. It's great seeing how lower ranking heroes and vigilantes have to try and work around problems rather than just charging straight forward into it and just punching it really, really hard in the face until it doesn't get up in the anymore. Which, to be fair, is still something we see later on, but we'll discuss that shortly. The fact that we see this aspect of the episode where they try to figure out how to overcome Crawler's weaknesses is great, and the fact it is solved by just motorcycle protective gear adds a level of authenticity and grit to the story. Sure, it's not gritty, it's not dark, it's not super grounded and super realistic, but it adds a sense of weight to proceedings which I really can appreciate. Sure, the story as a whole is still fantastical, but seeing them use their noggin, seeing them use their brain, seeing them just use whatever is around them to get them around the issues that they find themselves in, for me, is fantastic. Because I will be honest, one of the things I do kind of dislike about the main series is the fact that they can kind of wave their hands and go, oh, don't worry, we've got the science team on it, we've spent millions of dollars on this thing to help you, which, whilst I do appreciate and I do kind of like, at the same time it does kind of feel like a case of, okay, we've kind of knackered something up, so now we need to retcon it, here's something that you can wear to stop this being a problem. And here they don't have access to that, they really have to just go on whatever the hell they can find in a local thrift store and just make use of it. Beyond that kind of stuff, I did like the little knock-off X-Men fight that we got. That was a cute little reference. I will admit that there was a part of me that was worried where it was going to end up going. when I see things like this in pop culture, there's always this part of me that, let's see, I think the best word to describe it would be defensive, because it makes me worry, what are we going to do here? Is this going to end up being something just going like a hey, 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 ooh, laughing with you thing, or is this going to be a laughing at you thing? Is this going to be a celebration and a tip in the hat to the thing that they're referencing, or is this going to be a wagging thing down thing and saying, oh, this thing really sucks? Because there was a part of me that was worried that this was going to turn into some kind of flex on American comic books, which I really wouldn't like. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of agnostic towards them these days, but all the same, that really wouldn't have sat well for me. You know, I could easily have seen a situation where he beats up the two of them really, really easy because he's a manga protagonist, and manga's so much better than comic books, y'all. X-Men, more like lame men. Oh! Yeah. Still, that thankfully isn't what we got, and what we got was something that was cute, and it added to the world, and it was a fun little bit, a fun little moment. Like I say, stuff like this, I'm not a massive fan of pop culture references in general in fiction, and like I say, when they are, it's either like a cute little thing saying, oh, look at that, isn't that familiar, or it's a, hey, hey, we got you there, ooh, laughing with you thing, or it's a laughing at you thing. And I'm glad in the end it was just like, kind of like a cute little thing of, oh, that's a reference, I understand that. But anyway, like I say, I'm fine in the way it turned out. And in the end, it made for a nice little moment. And I hope that we see more of those two little characters on and off. Like, it'd be nice to see them in the background of a few shots now and again. Because I think that this story needs a wider cast of characters to help build it out a little bit. So I got a feeling that in a few episodes' time, I might be regretting that and just wishing that it was going back down to a more pared-down thing. I think that one of the things I do enjoy to talk about something a little more serious is the fact that we are continuing to get a good understanding as to what makes our lead tick. You know, this... how do I else put this? Whilst this episode isn't quite as going into the personal aspect of him quite as much, this isn't going into some kind of deep psychological dive into who he is and why he is, it is good to get an insight as to what makes him tick and what makes him the person that he is. He isn't quite as cynical as I expected, or maybe as cynical as I discussed him being in previous reviews, but at least now that we get an idea as to who he is, we know that he isn't really as cynical, but he does know the score. He knows that he really can't become a hero. That ship seems to have sailed for him, that world seems to have closed its door when he became too old to get on one of these hero courses. So, for him, he knows that's the problem, but he still wants to be a hero, he still wants to do good, and this is his only real option. Sure, he would like to do something bigger and bolder than just helping old women cross the street and putting recycling into the right bin, but, you know, at the same time, he knows that he can't exactly be diving about like Endeavour or All Might or anyone else like that. And whilst he does have a few misgivings for a few things that Hero World is wrapped up in, he still respects what they do, and he understands why the world needs them and why the world is the way that it is. He just wishes that he could be part of that world. Now, it would be a lovely thing to get a little bit more of an idea as to why he wants to do that. With Midoriya, you get that he wants to become a hero because he has a distinct reverence for heroing and hero work. He idolizes what it is to be a hero and to what heroes symbolize. Midoriya isn't doing it for cynical reasons, he's not doing it just for the money. He genuinely wants to make the world a better place and to give little kids something to smile about and to give people something to root for and to hope for. With Crawler here and now, whilst I don't think that isn't the case, here and now we don't have a firm grasp as to why he wants to be a hero. Because it's fair to say that he isn't in it for the money, or at least he doesn't want to become a hero for the money. Though I will admit that the idea of having a lead character in a story like this who really is just motivated by a need for money, I think would be kind of interesting and kind of cool, but, you know, different strokes for different folks. I still, to kind of wrap this little bit up, I think that we need to get a little bit of a clearer understanding as to why he wants to be a hero. Even if it's just a simple case of, oh, I grew up watching heroes saving the day on TV and the internet, and I really want to become one of them. Even just something quite as base as that, I'd be fine with. Because thus far in the manga, we've just got these rather pithy statements as to what heroes are and how great they are, but we don't really understand quite much as to why it means so much to him to become a hero, because, you know, he could quite easily have just continued on being your friendly neighbourhood crawler. Apologies for the brief pause, I had to pause the recording because one of the neighbours is outside using an angle grinder, so apologies if any weird noises picked up as a result of that. But as I was saying, I think that we need to get a greater understanding as to why Crawler wants to be a hero. Again, it doesn't need to be some bold statement as to what hero pop culture really is, just something a little bit more to it. I get the idea that he enjoys it, but I want a little bit more to it. Again, it was a lot easier to understand why Midoriya's doing it than with him, because Midoriya's was a little bit more self-evident. Midoriya's a certainly a more identifiable character for a broader spectrum of the audience, but that's a whole other discussion for all of the time. And my final positive is the fact that Knuckle Duster is still a great character, and I'm loving pretty much every scene that he's in, and there's a part of me that really wishes that this was just a Knuckle Duster manga, because this guy's fantastic, he really is. He feels just perfect. I mean, I don't think that he is necessarily a specific parody or satire on a specific type of hero or hero story type or hero archetype. Whilst in my copy of the manga it does have like a behind the scenes little bit, and it does mention how he's inspired by Batman. He sure as hell ain't no Batman, because Batman isn't quite that blunt, and I just find Knuckle Duster to be such a refreshing character. He just wants to do good, god damn it, and nothing's going to get in the way for him to stop it. He is an unstoppable force. When he sees a villain doing horrible villainous things, he's going to charge headlong into it and beat the ever-loving crap out of them until they give up. He has no subtlety to him, and he just will go nuts trying to solve any problem that's in front of him, even if it makes him look like a psychopath. And I love that. That's just such a bold contrast to just about every single hero character that we've had thus far in the My Hero Academia series. Whilst he's not an inspiring figure like Almighty, doesn't really seem to have the same level of baggage as Endeavour, and here and now, he's just really, really bloody minded, and I love that. There is no subtlety to him. He sees a problem and he has to solve it, even if it means that it might lead to him getting knackered up in some way. His solution to try and find out whether or not people are on drugs or not is to open their mouths and examine it. And in this episode, he goes absolutely hell for leather against this villain. A villain whose superpower is to be super durable, and he just beats the durability out of him. I mean, this villain, let's not forget, he's got I think in the manga it says he's got a gigantification quirk, he's got a durability quirk, and a super strength quirk. And Knuckle Duster's solution is just to beat the shit out of him until he can't use his quirk anymore. That's amazing. Wow. I could, in the back of my head, just that, I just kind of had a spark in my head as to how this fight would have gone against a different hero. There'd be a little bit more of a tactical feel there. There'd be a little bit more of a back and forth. There would be this moment of, ooh, whoever the hero is, oh, I don't think you're going to do it. This looks like it might be a little bit too strong for you. And then, of course, our hero would overcome it by going a level beyond, but not with Knuckle Duster. He just appears and goes, oh, that's a villain. Bam, 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 bam. Oh, wow, that's an amazing character. Oh, wow. And this kind of knackers up my review, because whilst I'm in this such a good mood thinking back to how amazing Knuckle Duster is, I have to talk about the negatives. So I will admit that this isn't really an issue with the episode itself, but more so the means in which I have to read it. Now, as some of you long-time viewers might be aware, I've had this copy of the manga floating about for years at this point. I think it's something that I bought very early into my review period, and it was always a case of, oh, I'll get around to this later on, and eventually I did. So I'm reading this from a paperback copy of this. I'm not reading this online, and this week's episode was, yeah, it's not filler, but it isn't quite as substantial as I hoped it would be. Certainly with a regard to the fact I had to pay specifically to watch it. Again, not filler, but in a 5-episode manga set, this one being just kind of light and fluffy, while sure, I would love to see it as an anime, here and now it kind of just has me sat here going, it was fun, but I kind of wanted a little bit more here. And I think it might be one of the smaller episodes thus far, or rather one of the shortest episodes thus far, which, I don't know. I suppose that when I get to doing like a review of the chapter itself, this whole manga little collection thing, I might reflect upon that, but here and now it just kind of feel a little bit like a bit of a bum note. Like, yeah, it's a lot of fun, it's enjoyable, but what did we learn? Not that much. A little bit of character development, a few cute moments, but beyond that, was it worth the cost of admission? Well, there's 5 episodes in this particular manga that I've got. Works at about £1 each. Maybe, but whatever. That's something I can ruminate on and think about at another point. So in conclusion, I have to say that I did love this particular episode. I think that it was a hell of a lot of fun. I don't have any real criticisms of it, just how it was delivered to me. I'm having to read these in paperback. I wish that, I'm sure that there has to be a website where you can read all these things on, like some kind of subscription service. It's a shame that Crunchyroll, for all its many advantages, quote unquote advantages, doesn't have access to stuff like this. And all the manga that seems to be on there is stuff that no one's ever heard of, but hey ho, that's just me as a casual observer to all these things. Still, as a whole, I think this was a fantastic episode. Really loved it. Again, kind of a bit of a bummer that it kind of feels a little bit more disposable than I would have liked it to, but still, great fun. With all that said and done, let us get into Comment Corner! Our comment comes from Big X1, who says, I have my copy of the manga coming in a couple of days. Then I could do a read-along. Which is, well, fantastic. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'm happy that it has inspired you to decide to go out and read these in your own time. I wonder how many other people have started reading this, or started to reread this as I've started to do reviewing these, because that would be neat to see, you know, a little bit of a read-along. We all read it along and just reflect back in almost like a book club kind of a way. Like, I will admit that I have been enjoying it, and I'm sure that fans of the series will, in a non-legally binding way, enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot here to like. It does feel enough like the main series that it doesn't feel like such an impossible thing to come across, but at the same time it has a freshness and a newness to it which makes it feel like a unique thing. I'll be interested to see where this all goes ultimately, but hey ho, that's just the way that it is. But anyway, thank you for your comment and thank you all for listening. I will be back next week with another review of the manga, I think. Actually, let's just take a moment to see how close are we to the big anniversary thing. Right, so we're only a couple... Wow. So, for anyone's not knowing, yeah, I'm going to be doing a 100th My Hero Academia related video anniversary thing on the 100th one. So I've only got about another 2 or 3 left before I have to do that. So, yes, 2 or 3 left. Ooh, I better put a little more effort into that. Anyway, that's something for me to worry about. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!